I'll introduce our second guest speaker for today, which is Richard Amon. Richard is the CEO at Disability Sport and Recreation. DSR has been providing and promoting positive health outcomes for people with disability through meaningful engagement in sport and active recreation for over 55 years. Their vision is a Victoria where all people with disability can choose and access any sport or active recreation they want to engage with. So today, Richard's going to explore the topic of how DSR can work with local government to assist people with disability to find better health through sport and rec in the post-COVID world. So again, over to you, Richard.
Great. Oh, well, thank you very much, Mandy, for the invitation. It's great to see a lot of familiar faces here on the screens, but also some unfamiliar faces. So today's session is just going to give a broader understanding about disability sport and recreation and its importance and how important it is in the local government context, and give you some tips and tricks about how we possibly could be working together into the future to create better outcomes for our societies. Just to begin with, I'd like to also acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and pay my respect to elders past and present. So as Mandy mentioned, I'm the CEO of Disability Sport and Recreation, and we've been around for over 55 years trying to improve the lives of people with disability through participation in sport and recreation. You might know we used to be Wheelchair Sports Victoria over 10 years ago, but rebranded to become more of a broader organisation seeking to improve outcomes for all sorts of disability types, but also covering sport, but importantly also recreation. So we've been doing a lot of work in the recreation space. So it's not just all about sport. We've been involved with research projects with a project called Fit Skills, which was involved with in the community gym settings, seeing how a buddy sort of system might be more supportive for people with disability. And so we do a lot of work. We do a lot of work with the YMCA and also with other partners. So we're involved in the recreation space very much as the sporting space. We do winter and summer camps. We also do a lot of activities, just trying to provide lots of opportunities for people. But essentially, we're a partnering organisation. We're a facilitator. We like to work with other organisations, and we're here to work as closely as we can with you, recognising there are so many other experts in the field who are also doing some great work. The state government does a lot of great work in this space. So we're a facilitator, and we're here to try and make a difference, in the broader context. We went through a big strategic review recently, and one of the biggest pieces of feedback we got from the sector was that no one's really taking what we called a balcony view, which is where someone's looking over above and seeing how the sector itself can be improved. So we're really interested in playing that role and working with a number of organisations to help further the cause of disability sport and recreation. So just quickly about me, I've been involved 10 years in local government, so I know a lot of you through that time. So I know very keenly the roles that you play and how important it is, but also what I do know is the importance that you have about making local connections with people. And that's really where all the major change can occur to people's daily lives and get them involved in sport and recreation. Oh, am I still there on the screen?
Yep, you just put some slides up, Rich, but then you just took them down.
Well, I didn't do anything. Something just went, someone else put something up. Anyway, I'll keep, all of a sudden I didn't touch anything, I'm sure. So I've had 10 years local government. Before that, 8 years in university sport, a couple of years as a consultant, but also a number of years in the commercial gym settings, and also as a sports scientist was my original training. So I think over the journey, what I've found is I've gotten to the point where I am now, where I'm very clear on my why. I'm here because I want to make a difference in society, a fairer, more equitable society, and I know very strongly that sport and recreation has got a key role to play for that. And I saw a quote recently that I think is really important, and that is that you need to dream bigger than what you can do on your own. And I think that really applies to your organisations you work for, but also you personally. What can you do that's going to have a greater impact on the world, and recognising that you're not going to be the one who's going to drive it all yourself, that you need to partner and work with others to get to that destination. So I'd like to quickly just give you a little story, just to give you a context about disability sport and recreation, if you're not aware of it. As I said, we run summer and winter camps, and I'll just tell you one story about a little girl called Natalie who attended one of our winter camps a couple of years ago. So we take a group of kids up to Falls Creek to give them an on-the-snow experience. And Natalie is a beautiful little girl, but she can't walk, she can't talk, and she needs assistance with eating, and she hadn't been to the snow before. So we were able to take her on this on the snow experience where we fitted her out into a sit ski. And my job for the weekend, which was a terrific job, was to do some filming and to make a video that we could show the parents after the camp. So I very much intimately saw how the weekend unfolded. After the first day, we all sat around the table and all the kids were told to provide some feedback about what they found the first day's experience was for them. And I was sort of wondering, oh, hang on, well, what's Natalie going to be able to communicate, because she can't speak, obviously. But what she does do is she can communicate through a communication board. And what happened was everyone went round, they told their little story, and it came round to Natalie's turn, and she pressed a button on her communication machine, and the message that she gave to the group was, "Thank you for the best day of my life." And every time I tell that story, oh my God, I get goosebumps. And I think I've told that story 1,000 times, and every time it has the same impact on me. And what it showed to me was that everyone deserves what we call an ordinary life. In the State Disability Plan, it talks about working towards delivering for everyone an ordinary life. And that means being able to play sport with your mates, being able to push yourself in some sort of recreation activity, being able to find better health. Essentially, that's the work we do in a nutshell. We try and find answers, solutions, work with partners to try and get a better outcome for people with disability. And that could cover all sorts of enterprises. There's groups called the Power Chair Sports Association who can pretty much just operate in a wheelchair with a slight little toggle switch, but they get to play games of rugby and hockey on an indoor court. So they can play sport and they can compete and they can travel overseas representing Australia. It's amazing what can be done. You know, there's a group called Scope who run a sport called balloon football, where they assist people in their chairs to push a football around a big balloon over the court to play a game of sport. And essentially what you see when you watch these activities, you see the bright faces, you see the smiles, you see the enjoyment, you see the support that's provided for them, and you see lives changed in front of you. You know, it's no minor statement to say that we change lives, because I've seen it many, many times. So I'm just trying to give you a power of the story of what we do and the importance of it, and then think back to your communities. What's happening in your communities with people with disability? How are they being supported? How can you make that better for them, so that when we talk about the COVID-19 and what happens post-COVID-19 when resources might become scarce, how are your organisations going to work towards making sure that people with disability are still included in your thinking? So let's just talk about how big the issue is. You might just sort of think, you know, it's a relatively small part of society and it's not as big an issue. But I'd just like to say, Vic Health did some research a number of years ago, and they found that people with disability are 40% less likely to be active than the rest of the population. So that's a massive amount of people who aren't getting the social, physical and mental health benefits from participating in sport and recreation. And some people might say, well, you know, maybe they're not that interested in participating in sport and recreation. The Australian Sports Commission a number of years did a study, and they found that over 900 people with disability who they surveyed, 83% of them said that they wanted to become active. So there's a huge population that's sitting out there who are wanting to become more physically active, a huge unmet demand. And you might not realise that 1 in 5 people identify as having a disability. So that's 1.1 million Victorians who have a disability who could potentially become much more active than what they are. So ask the question of yourselves, how many people with disability are in my community? What work are we doing now to support them? How can we do better? And what's really unfortunate is that in recent consultation with the State Disability Plan, 36% of Victorians are uncomfortable in asking people with disability what they need. And there's 75% of Victorians are unsure how to act towards people with disability. And in some ways that's sort of understandable, because there's a lack of knowledge, there's a lack of understanding, there's a sense of not being comfortable with a situation that you're not aware of. So there's a massive job that needs to happen about raising awareness and understanding and education, so that people can confidently go to someone with disability and talk to them, find out what their issues are, find out how we can help them, find out what they need. And it's really just a process of education and raising aspirations in the community about what's possible that's going to ultimately make a big difference for people with disability. So local governments have got a huge role to play in this space, because as you all know, you have a massive local connection with your communities and a massive opportunity to make a difference in their understanding and awareness. So one of the programs that we run that's really important about changing attitudes and awareness is a schools program and a corporate education program called Wheel Talk. We send presenters out who have a disability they tell their story, and then we've got a trailer of wheelchairs, and they actually get to play a game of wheelchair sport afterwards. So they get a real first-hand taste about what it's all about. And some of you might have already participated in one of those programs. We've reached 20,000 kids a year with that, and we're now moving into the corporate environment to provide that training and benefit to people in various different sectors, so that they just get that first little hurdle overcome about how do you talk to someone with disability? What's it like to play sport if you have a disability? Is it just as exciting? Is it just as thrilling? Is it just as physical? And you get a taste of it, and then you get a better understanding. So hopefully when that next day turns up and someone in your community presents to you who's got a disability, no matter what it is, you'll be able to go through the process to try and get an answer that supports them. So we're trying to change the attitudes and awareness of the community. We created a concept called DSR TV, where we try and focus disability sport on our website. We partner with My Sport Live to try and showcase various different disability sport activities, so that we want to normalise it, so that we can educate the community about aspirations and about what's possible with people with disability. So I recall having, been back at City of Casey a number of years ago. We had a local disability sport officer who worked quite closely with the community, and we thought that was a fantastic program, making local connections, finding out local answers, local solutions to local needs, and very much delivered some great outcomes. Unfortunately, the state government's changed that funding model, and now that money is mostly going towards state sporting associations and different organisations to develop programs, and that's terrific. But I think what's really lacking in the moment in the local government context is those local officers who are working closely with the community, working with those state sporting associations, then trying to bring the programs into their local community when they've got an identified need. So in response to that, we were able to get some funding through Vic Health last year to set up a disability sport hub. So this will be a one-stop shop within one community where we're trying to reconnect those local connections. We're trying to get people back talking to their local community with disability, talking with providers, and then providing solutions on the ground. So that can make a massive difference. So we're about halfway through that project. It's been sort of put on hold a bit because of the COVID-19 issue, but we're looking forward to having the outcomes of that towards the end of the year. We're going to have a model that we're going to be able to go out to all other local government areas, and we'll be able to talk to you and say, well, do you want a taste of this? Do you want to get back involved in this local work, supporting your local community of people with disability? And ideally, in the long run, if we crystal ball 10, 20 years down the track, we'd have 20 or 30 of these hubs all around the state with a really keen interest and a really clear model about creating better outcomes for people with disability. And a critical part of that is planning with your community of people with disability. The really important concept is nothing for me without me. So really, when you think about the planning that you might be considering for your community of people with disability, you really need to include them in your planning, in their discussions, and finding local needs for their local issues, because it's a really critical factor to include local people with disability in your planning. So what we're trying to do is set up a model where this can occur. And so hopefully look forward towards the end of the year and into the future, we'll communicate the outcomes of this hub, and we'll hopefully be able to get a number of other local government entities involved in engaging with one of these activities in their community. So one of the things we have done to try and support and work with local governments is get involved with their leisure facility management contracts. So we've done a couple of examples where we've worked with the YMCA, where we've had a component within their contract proposals involved working with us in working with the local community. So as you're going out to tender for your particular local government facilities, it's important that you put a component in there that reflects catering for the needs of people with disability. And that includes, equipment, it includes storage, it includes programming time, training, resources for the staff who are operating in those communities, because there's so many different aspects that need to be overcome to deliver great outcomes. So we'd be looking to work with you in any of those approaches to see how that could work, to see how you can get a better outcome for your communities. But I think importantly, if you don't have much experience or knowledge, then that's fine. I mean, the first step's always the hardest. So yeah, I'd encourage you to talk to us about potentially getting one of our Wheel Talk sessions to be booked in, where we could come to your community with your staff, and just to give you that basic first-hand experience of training and education around working with people with disability. And there's a number of there's online resources. Special Olympics have got a fantastic coaching resource. There's a webinar, there's this 6-part webinar that's about to start. Big Sport have done some great research and some great webinars. So there's a lot of information out there. So I just encourage you all to get involved, to try and find out what's out there and really become more educated, but really treat this whole issue of people with disability in a positive mindset. You know, it's about what people can achieve. And I think we're all looking to make a better world and to make a better outcome for our communities. It's such a massive opportunity for you all to really make a difference locally, but also for yourself to get some nourishment, some belief that what you're doing is making a difference in the world and you've had some small role to play with it. So in the future, you could sign up. Disability in Sport and Recreation, we'll be going on a membership drive into the future. We don't charge for membership. We're trying to create a movement around the issue of people with disability leading their best life through sport and recreation. So the more people that can get involved and work with us, at the moment we've got 26 LGAs who are members, but we'd love to have you all as individual members or your organisations as members, and encourage your community of people with disability to also become members of us, because ultimately the bigger voice we have, then the stronger voice we'll have in government to be able to try and get better outcomes for people with disability. So a few of them might be thinking that, you know, the NDIS is going to solve all these problems. Well, the reality is the NDIS will help some individual circumstances. There might be some equipment provided, some transport support. There might be a whole range of support, but what we need is a broader environment where people with disability are going into a welcoming environment, and then they can be able to have support from the right training, the right signage, the right equipment, the right access of physical access in facilities to be able to make a difference. So in the future, I'd encourage you to go to the DSR website. You can subscribe to our monthly newsletter called Vortex. The website is www.dsr.org.au. Sign up and become a member. It's free. You'll be able to be kept up to date with all the information that we've got. But importantly, you'll become part of a movement that's going to seek to make some real difference in the world. And local government's got a real opportunity to make a significant contribution to that. So we do a whole range of other activities. I've got a quick little video. I'm not sure if you got time to show that, man. It goes for about 2 minutes. If you put that on.
Yep, go for it.
Okay.
Can you share screen?
Yes.
Yep. I'm not seeing anything on the screen, Rich.
No?
No, I think, have you got share screen down the bottom of your screen? Like in the bar down the bottom that says next to the chat bar? We're getting some nice music though.
Yeah, that's weird. You can hear the music.
Yeah, we might not be able to do that, but yeah, if you've got any resources that you want us to send through, then we can forward them out to participants. But you know what? I was writing down all these questions as you were speaking, and then you kept answering them.
Okay.
So yeah, you were giving us lots and lots of information, which was absolutely fantastic. So, is there anyone in the room that would like to ask a question of Richard? If you do, please take yourself off mute. And as per normal, you get 3 seconds to ask your question. 3, 2, 1. No question. All right. No, Rich, you did actually provide a lot of information. I was writing down stuff and I'm like, no, he's just answered that. He's just answered that. But I would encourage everybody, obviously, to, now they've met you, if they haven't met you before, obviously a lot of us have met you through your local government days at Casey. But if you don't know Rich, please make contact with him. I'm not sure whether Aidan's in the room today. There's a few pages of heads here, but Aidan Shaw works with you. And a lot of you will know him as well. So yeah, disability, access and inclusion at the top of the list. We talked about a couple of weeks ago, probably 3 weeks ago, we talked about challenging ourselves to consider how we could deliver services differently, and connecting in with Richard and also connecting in with Lynette is a really great start if you're not already doing it. So thanks, Rich, for coming along. We'll probably keep moving along because we're a couple of minutes just before